Hello everybody, Disciple here with Overwatch Curios. One of the core game design philosophies for Blizzard with Overwatch has been to make every hero viable inside the game, and it's something we see them working on time and time again. They frequently test new changes and concepts on the PTR and are always looking for ways to bring underplayed heroes into the spotlight, whether by changing values, how they function, or even creating new abilities for them to use. With 27 heroes and counting, finding that perfect point of balance can be pretty difficult. There are some heroes that unfortunately just don't see play at the highest end of the spectrum for different reasons, and today we're going to take a look at some of those heroes who can be great in competitive play but are absolute no-goes at the professional level. Now you might be surprised to hear us mentioning Symmetra first, but Symmetra can actually be a great pick in certain scenarios for competitive play. Her primary fire can deal a ton of damage and requires pretty little effort in terms of aiming, and she has some great support options for the team even though she can't heal. However, despite what she can offer to a team defensively, she's just never used in professional play. So, why is that? Well, the most obvious answer is the weakness of her ultimate, which is also something that makes her a great defensive option in comp. Her teleporter can quickly relocate dead allies back into the fight, or her shield generator gives a sizable boost to health in the form of shields, which restore anytime someone's out of combat. That advantage in health can be pretty significant, however it's also really easy to seek out and destroy her teleporter or shield generator, and a competitive team is going to be so much better at doing that. And while having the option to teleport players back can be really useful, in the most competitive games when teams are coordinated and typically dying together, her teleporter with 6 charges effectively only brings the team back together once, assuming it isn't destroyed, unlike at lower levels of play where deaths are more staggered and it can offer a real advantage. Symmetra can create a snowball effect for the enemy team. It's a pretty commonly accepted rule of Symmetra play that if your team loses the first point on a hybrid or a capture map, that you're better off switching off Symmetra. In the grand scheme of things, that's effectively stripping any ult charge from a single player on the team when Symmetra switches, leaving your team with one less potential ult to use in upcoming fights. The simple act of switching heroes gives the enemy team a small but noticeable advantage in the next team fight. But more problematic than any of those issues, however, is that a Symmetra pick occupies the role of either a tank or support for the game. If you choose to run her over a tank, your team loses the ability to mitigate a lot of damage as the enemy team approaches, instead relying on setting up a turret nest and her short-lived shield projector to try and deter attackers. Since the turrets are easily countered and a photon shield travels super fast, so it ends super fast, she simply doesn't provide the same staying power for a team. And on the other end of the spectrum, if run in place of a support, you're forcing all of your team's survivability into the hands of a single healer. High-level players will notice this quickly and exploit it to the fullest extent. Due to this, it's unlikely we'll ever see Symmetra in professional play in her current state. Now, Blizzard has stated that they're working on ideas to change Symmetra and make her a bit more viable, but they've yet to give any real projection of when any future rework could be ready, and since those changes would need to see extensive testing, Symmetra could end up being the only hero to not see any playtime in the Overwatch League's inaugural season. And it's crazy that a character with such a high win rate for basically the entire duration of Overwatch in competitive play could not see any play in professional play, but it just goes to show the difference in the levels between the play and how they can just be so different from your own experience in game. Now, Bastion, on the other hand, is a hero that has seen some play inside the league, most notably the first season. However, since then he must have gotten hit by Pharah because he has fallen off the map. Bastion would see play from attacking teams on Junkertown, where they would exploit the narrow corridors to their advantage and set up extremely defensive protections centered around keeping Bastion on top of the payload, and more importantly, keeping him alive. Oftentimes, if he did die, it would force the team to switch off Bastion and select a more traditional DPS so that they didn't waste any more time. However, Bastion can be exceptionally strong in competitive play when pulled off well, because of the insane amount of damage he can put out. So why is it that we saw a quick end to the days of Bastion in pro play? As we kind of hinted at in the beginning, Bastion requires a team to work around him. Despite having 300 HP in turret form, he's pretty vulnerable given his immobility, and he can be dove on quite easily. Professional players understand the urgency in removing a Bastion from the game, so they'll orchestrate their play around quick and decisive action to bring him down. And despite being able to self-heal, the healing output is slow and limited, meaning that a quick burst of damage can still kill him easily. Having to swap to sentry mode from turret mode not only locks you in your animation, but also means that your damage output is far increased, so for a time it's almost as good as killing you. Heroes like Genji can be exceptionally powerful against Bastion. Not only is Deflect a good tool for taking him down, but if the team is built up around defending Bastion, constant dash resets can potentially allow Genji to wipe the entire team, especially if he's got Dragon Blade. And that in particular may be Bastion's biggest flaw. Simply by being in play, Bastion creates a damage zone around him in which the enemy team can just funnel damage. Chances are that even if Bastion himself stays alive, the onslaught from things like Junkrat grenades, Pharah rockets, or even diving DPS and tanks should be able to kill other members of Bastion's team, removing that safety net he once had and forcing him to play way more defensively, basically negating the purpose of the Bastion comp. Now, Ana was one of the community's most desired heroes in the time leading up to her release, and she was the first release that we saw once Overwatch actually came out. Plenty of rumors and hype surrounded the story of a sniping support hero being added to the game, and after her release, Ana saw tons of play in a period of time where she completely dictated the meta after a couple of buffs and figuring her out. These days, however, it's very rare to see her in play professionally. The community is buzzing about Ana needing buffs. However, the Overwatch team has only stated that they're looking at her, but believe she's doing alright in competitive play, which is true, technically. In professional play, however, Ana is just completely outclassed and only selected as a niche pick by Ana mains, and even then, it's pretty rare. If you were an Ana main on an Overwatch League team, you learned quite a while ago that you really needed to start practicing some other supports. The biggest issue with Ana is the raw amount of actions per minute, or APM, it takes for her to be viable when compared to other supports, particularly against the likes of Moira, who continues to see more and more pro play. Her healing output can be tremendous, and she has the highest potential single target burst healing, but it requires both great aim and a constant stream of landing those shots for the entire match. Ana is just infinitely more difficult to play well compared to her counterparts. And even though you should say that a great player should be able to keep up with that APM no problem, the issue is that while you are trying to move across the map, communicate with your team, and deal with an ever-changing battlefield of your own team as well as your opponents, while your opposing team is swapping heroes trying to counter your strategy, it turns out that anything that stops your ability to heal is a little bit too much. Outside of that, both of her healing and her most powerful tools like Biotic Grenade and Sleep Dart can be absorbed or negated by barriers or D.Va's defense matrix. Coordinated and good tank play strips away nearly all the utility that Ana can offer her team and also reduces her healing throughput by a lot. The one ability that she has that can't be absorbed, her Nano Boost, can be pretty tricky to use effectively. For instance, when used on a DPS with Tactical Visor or Dragon Blade, you're putting two ultimates into one and really hoping that it's going to be successful, when it could be countered by one enemy ultimate or even something simple like a Roadhog hook or McCree's flashbang, making it a really costly investment. Meanwhile, if you use it on someone like a Reinhardt or a Winston, just knocking him back like Lucio's Boop, or if Zenyatta Transcendences, you can have a similar effect of just negating the damage from it entirely. Getting any value out of her ultimate for professional players can be an absolute nightmare since your opponents are also playing pretty darn well. Ana also suffers from a serious lack of mobility, making her incredibly vulnerable in a meta focused around diving. If a pro Tracer or Genji dives onto an Ana, it's very likely they'll be able to kill her really quickly if she doesn't have immediate peel coming from her team, and basically a Lucio pocketing her the whole time. While she didn't make our list of the top 3 most underused heroes in pro play, Mei certainly came to mind when working on this video as well. With the recent changes to her alternate fire, it may be possible we see her coming into play more in the future. Honestly, Mei has a ton of utility to offer a team, a strong zoning ultimate, and some serious damage potential when placed in the hands of a very competent player. While her primary fire can be difficult to use against coordinated teams, she has potential to control teams very well, and could even be a powerful tool in establishing an anti-dive team comp when paired with something like Brigitte in the future. With any luck, we'll get to see Mei coming back strong more in professional play, but it doesn't seem like we've seen too much of that so far. Anyway, with 27 heroes to choose from and counting, which of them is your favorite off-meta pick for competitive play? And when it comes to the professional level, who do you want to see more of in the future? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, if you haven't subscribed, well, why? Why? Come on. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.